moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. I feel tired, really like bone tired. And I don't talk a lot about my personal life and other things on this channel. I mentioned vague things here and there, and it always kind of creeps me out, by the way, when I go, like, somebody has a wiki of YouTube personalities, I guess. I guess I'm a YouTube personality. It's kind of weird. I don't think of myself as a YouTube personality, but there you go. And they're going into, there's an entry on Perch, and it's like, well, Perch has a dog, and yeah, like they're going into all these weird little mashed together details of my personal life. And I'll tell you, like, that's the kind of stuff that causes me to stop doing a channel. Like, I read that stuff, I was like, nope, this is creepy, because it's like 90% correct, but the 10% that's wrong is really wrong. And so it's just this very strange, like, window into your life through someone else's eyes, and it's really weird. I don't know why people do this. I don't know why people care. My mind immediately goes to sinister reasons. Like, the person is doing this so they can line up a bunch of docs material. I mean, every now and then I ask myself, I'm doing these videos, and I do a lot of these videos from the car, like I'm doing right now. So the idea of video would be kind of weird. I mean, I'm sure it would entertain some people to see me talking while I'm in a car, I guess, but generally it doesn't work. But every now and then I'm like, I need to just have my face on the screen. I don't really care. It'll be okay. I'm yeah. I'm just gonna say it this way. It's gonna sound like a brag. I don't mean it that way, but I get I will be. I'm financially set, so I'm not really worried about money being taken away from me in the future if somebody dislikes what I say. All right, I'll just put it that way. And but could happen. I don't want trouble unnecessarily. I think one of the things about when you earn wealth and you establish your life, you steer away from trouble naturally, because it's not about somebody taking something from you. It's like, I don't want the hassle of having to deal with a lot of crazy nonsense. So every now and then I think, though, I just show my face. I mean, what does it really matter? And then I come across like these wiki entries and, like, oh God, there's crazy people out there. Nope. Stay secret as long as you can. We got Emerald City Comic Con coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm going to wander around that show and everything else. The troll in me wants to wear a shirt that says, like, "Hey, I'm Perch," and just walk around with that thing. I won't do that. But I'm curious to see. I'm curious how that's going to go. There's definitely going to be some people who were like, "Hey, wait, are you?" Maybe, I don't know. Don't know. I also think that, like, 0.1% of the comics people know who I am. So, nobody's going to be looking because nobody gives a shit, is kind of the reaction. But anyway, but I'm tired. Like, I am beat tired from the planning of moving to, I always take on more work than I'm capable of doing, and then I figure out a way to do it anyway, and I'm exhausted. But you get these ideas about comics, and the crazy thing about comics, and I'm feeling this more and more lately. And I wonder if other people are feeling it or not. I don't know. But comics, they're meant to be enjoyment. They're meant to be something you can kind of, you could pick up, you could buy. You're basically spending money so you can enjoy yourself. You're paying for the privilege of being able to, have a good time and enjoy comics. And it's what strikes me is that it's a chore for a lot of people. I'm sure there are some people out there who are picking up kind of, all the current comics, and it's just nothing but happy times. And it may be hard for some of you to believe this, but as a retailer, when people would come in, there were people who were buying the comics. And honestly, you know what? These were my favorite customers. The people who would come in and they're just like, they have no problems. They're like, hey, everything's great. The title would radically change. I remember X-Men changes hands from, Christ, whoever was writing it. You had the Grant Morrison, Joss Whedon era, and then you had the Chuck Austin was in there, and then you had the Matt Fraction, Ed Brubaker, and then just Matt Fraction and Karen Gillan, and you had these radically different tonal shifts, from moment to moment. It's like the X-Men there's mutants everywhere. Oh, there's not mutants everywhere because the Scarlet Witch, got rid of a bunch of them, and then now they're on some kind of reservation guarded by sentinels, and now they're living in San Francisco, and now they're living on Magneto's Island, and now they're separated into two groups of Wolverine leading one and Cyclops leading the other. Radically different changes. And there were some customers who would come and buy those comics, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm having a good time. Don't care." And I always in my head thought, how could this possibly be? Because the story changed so dramatically. I mean, like, if you liked the Grant Morrison era of X-Men, I don't know how you liked the Matt Fraction era of X-Men. They're completely and totally different. The style, everything is different. Even the way the character's written is different. It's completely different. How is it that how can you go from one to the other? But some people manage to do it. I've never understood how, other than they get into enjoying it. I talk to people who are in comics, and I think a lot of creators in comics are somewhat removed from the day to day. Many of them will admit they're not reading all the comics. They're not tracking. They're working in the industry, and this is true. If you work for Facebook, there's been reports, there's been blogs, there's been articles about people who work for Facebook that don't really use Facebook. You start to just not care about the product. I mean, it's not care. You care about the product you're building because you want to get paid, to build it, but you don't use it. You're no longer the target audience. You're no longer the masses. So you're disconnected from the product. This is a problem big companies face. They wind up bringing consultants and other people to kind of tell them how their product works because they find themselves disconnected from it. I was surprised to learn that in Tesla, the company. I don't know why I'm surprised, but Tesla, the company, the majority of people who work at Tesla do not drive Teslas, and there was like almost half of the people who work at Tesla have never driven it. Like, not only don't own a Tesla, have never driven a Tesla. How weird is that? You work for this company, you make this product, and you don't experience the product you're making. Well, that's true for comics as well. A lot of people are in comics, working in comics, don't read the comics. Now, to me, that feels absolutely bizarre. I can't even wrap my head around it. I could never tolerate being in that role. For me, I'd be like, nope, I can't do it. Just flat, full stop. That makes no sense to me. No, that's how I would be. But a lot of people are comfortable with this, and one of the things you learn in life as you get older is people who don't make any sense to you. There's limited value in trying to understand them. Just don't. Just move on with your life. Just understand yourself, understand what makes you happy. Stop worrying about whatever crazy stuff makes the other person tick, because there's no way to fully get it, and there maybe is no value to fully getting it. It's that second part that is the hardest one to understand. It's that you can still have empathy for other people. You can still appreciate that there are different perspectives out there in the world, but you don't need to understand them. Why does this matter for comics? Because right now we definitely have a problem where, I mean, here's what scares me. It's different from what maybe you've heard before. What scares me is that the comic publishers are off producing comics. Like, just as many as they can crank out the door, they're producing comics. And their audience is splintered. There's long-term collectors, there's new collectors, there's casual fans, there's all these kind of different people in the audience. My fear is that the current companies really don't have a good handle on any of them. They don't know about the long-term collectors. They don't know about the new people. They don't know about they don't really have they're basically writing and delivering to their own audience. And their own audience is often made up of freelancers and contractors, people making comics who, are not even, are not regulars. And this is what's made up of the comic industry. Right now, big corporations spend a lot of money from companies like Accenture and McKinsey and all these consultants to basically tell them, what their audience thinks, to basically, inform them what their customers are saying. They do that because they don't trust that that knowledge is internal. So they have to pay an external company to tell them what their audience is saying. I think that, comics is not spending that money. So what I fear is that like everybody is off kind of fumbling around trying to make comics, and nobody really understands the audience or even trying to go after. And I say this, this is my horror, which is I'm sure 99% of you listening could give no shits about what I'm saying right now. I don't know why you're listening, but it is scary to me as a product person, as somebody who's worked in, in retail, who's had comic shops, who thinks about customer behavior a lot. It's weird to me to think that the company doesn't have a good understanding of its own customer base, and that they're still plugging along anyway. It actually, in a very weird and twisted way, it speaks to the absolute power of comics. It speaks to the power of how impressive Marvel and DC and some of these big brands are, because they're basically able to go out there and make product without fully understanding their audience they're selling to, and still survive. Because despite what you may hear on the internet or other places, these companies are still making a profit. I think the problem is that they're not making anywhere close to the profit they should be making, given the power of their brand. That's the core problem. These companies should be doing 5 to 10x better than they currently are. The fact they're not is really indicative of one thing: they're disconnected from their audience, and they don't really have a good way to connect. And by the way, I would stand up, not as a way to shame those companies, but I would defend that comment of, I've talked to so many of your people in editing, your people who are in distribution and marketing, talk to creators. The creators are less important in this particular aspect, because the full-time employees of the company is what counts, and they express they have no idea what the customer base is after. They're not collecting metrics. They're not looking over the data, over what's selling and doing analysis on it. They're not doing any of that. They're just out there plugging away. In many ways, comics, and I don't think a lot of channels have made this point, but I wish more would. Comics are really more like licensing than content creation, in the sense that even the owner of Spider-Man, Marvel Comics, who has the Spider-Man comic, they treat the comic more like a license, meaning they're going to, give it out to somebody for a little while, and they're going to tell some stories against it and hopefully move things forward. Maybe not. Who knows? That's how they're going to treat it. That's similarly to how you treat like a company that says, we're going to make some T-shirts with Spider-Man's face on it. You go, all right, well, you have a license for a year, see what you can do. That's the same way that the content creators, the writers, and the people who are paid to produce these comics, that's how they're treated, which is very different than, say, I don't know, Apple or Google, which says, we have a core product, search or maps or the iPhone or whatever it is, and this is our product that's very close. So when we're making it, we're doing a lot of research into what our customers want, what's working, what's not working. We're tuning it. We're investing, like the team that's going to come up with this bit of software, iOS 15, 16, whatever it happens to be. This team is going to be on this product for 5 years of building this thing. And then after they're done building it, we're going to move on to the next OS, because this is a long-term team and a commitment and an understanding of the customer that we're after. That's not how comics works. But a lot of fans, a lot of people who are criticizing it, a lot of people who comment on comics, they view Marvel and DC a lot more like Apple making the iPhone, as opposed to, Disney selling the image of Mickey off to a backpack company to make backpacks. Comics is more like the second, not like the first, but a lot of people assume it's like the first. And in fairness, it should be more like the first. The IP starts somewhere. Imagine this for a second. This is maybe the craziest part, and I'll kind of end on this bit, because again, I suspect I'm boring all of you right now, but this is stuff that keeps me up at night. Right now, if let's say Marvel has Jonathan Hickman, they have a relationship with, and they say, hey, Hickman, we want you to come in and we want you to work on Guardians of the Galaxy in the cosmic lineup. of our comics. We think you can do something pretty cool with it. And Hickman, goes back to his study and he thinks for a while and he's like, you know what? I've got a pitch for Quasar. It's really amazing. This Quasar comic is something that's really going to resonate with tons of people. I did some research. I looked into it. Now, this can be an amazing story. He writes it, and they get Jim Chung to come in and draw it for, I don't know, pull the name out of the air. And this title sells amazing. Like suddenly Quasar is a top 5 comic. And Disney's like, holy shit, we didn't know you had Quasar. Let's make Quasar. And so they hire, who knows, like who's a popular, I don't even know. They hire some popular actor to portray Quasar. Nicolas Cage. No, I'm just kidding. That not a popular actor, but that'd be fun. They get some amazing actor play Quasar. They put out a Quasar movie. Quasar, the movie, makes $1.5 billion. All right? That's what Disney would like. That's what the shareholders would like. But everything I just described is being very thoughtful about your property. What's the flaw in what I just said? Well, the flaw is that Marvel, it goes back to the source, reaches out to John Hickman and says, "Hey, would you do some stuff with cosmic stories?" Now, let's say Jonathan Hickman, instead of going into his study and thinking up a property and going, "My God, I think I could do something with Quasar," and like writing the story, this incredible pitch. Let's say instead Jonathan Hickman goes into the living room, is like, "I got the money. F it. I'm watching Cowboy Bebop. I'm curious what that live action show looks like, and then I'm gonna smoke some weed, and then I'm gonna go drink with some friends downtown, and then I'm gonna, come up with a script of whatever I'm happen to be thinking about at the time. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, then DC wants me to do Legion of Superheroes." So let's say in an alternate universe, instead of making that huge, amazing property that Disney and everybody else is able to transform into $1 billion property, let's say that instead Hickman phones it in because, honestly, what in the system is preventing him from phoning it in? There's nothing. Right now, the creators, can either do an amazing pitch or do a shitty pitch. And, the editors may or may not comment on it, but, it's all tiny money. So, is an editor really going to go to the mat to come up with the best pitch possible for Quasar? Probably not. Not when that editor is making like $40K a year. No. So a lot of this success depends on the writer and ultimately the artist who gets picked for it, who can visualize a lot of this stuff. It depends on them actually wanting to do something really amazing, knowing that if they do something really amazing, they won't profit off of it. The corporation will. Whether they do something kind of half-assed or something amazing, they're going to get paid the same. That's the broken part of the system. And that's why comics is a lot more like licensing t-shirts than actually creating IP. That's where it's broken. And if we play it out, that's where ultimately things are going to break down. And food for thought. Let me know your thoughts. Comments below, of course. Thanks for listening.